So maybe we're live at this point.
Well, I think it takes 20 seconds.
Yeah, so I think because it says it's green over here, I think we are actually going out at this point. But we're just waiting for it all to populate through. So this is the part where people watching on the recording will now be sort of wondering what is going on.
Is that it popped up there?
Yeah. So I think we're live now.
So have you posted the link in the Discord chat?
Yeah, I'll go do that if you want to chat for a little bit.
Okay, well, we've had a lot of fun setting this up. Well, it wasn't last month. Last month we were lazy. The month before that, so January, we did it from Tim's place, and we spent about an hour setting it all up there and got that all... Well, Tim set it up while I just sat and watched, which is what I did again this time. But it took an hour to set it up. Now we're doing it at my place. Tim brought everything. We thought we'd be right to go, and it turns out we were using a G7 camera last time, which is Tim's. We're using a G85 this time. Bit of messing around there to get it to work, but it is now working, we think. We hope.
I think it is working. I think so.
We both have the same audio setup, so at least that went smoothly. So the audio should be coming through loud and clear. And hopefully my internet doesn't drop out. So we're also relying on that. I'll just check this link and bear with me one moment while I just check the audio.
Yeah. This is all a bit of a...
We're professionals.
Yeah, that's right. Our second ever live stream.
And people wonder why we don't do this on the main channel. Yeah,
I was kind of thinking, maybe in a couple of months we'll be able to do this on the main channel, but can we? I don't know. Yeah, so we posted the links in all the relevant places on Patreon.
Okay, yeah, I think it looks and sounds fine.
Looks and sounds fine. That's all we need.
It's definitely, well, it was loud in those little earbuds.
Yeah, and yeah, so that's all good. I might post a link on our Twitter as well, just for to the post, so that. Yeah.
Jared, do you actually have a job? You're supposed to have a day job, aren't you? He's always around.
Well, I guess people in America, this is like.
Well, he's not in America.
Isn't he?
No, he's in Aussie.
Okay. Well, obviously this guy's unless just watching it at work, that's all fine, isn't it?
Well, I think it's I'm sure that. Well, that's it. He could be watching it at work. We need his job. Working from home today. Okay, fair enough.
From home, yeah.
So are we.
Yeah. We can watch other people's live streams, I guess, when we.
Maybe that's what we should do. Watch someone else's live stream with these guys and. We'll react to their live stream. That's a tough job. All right. The audio sounds compressed to hell.
Yeah, I think that's YouTube.
Okay.
Because I cannot set a... Oh, I can set a bitrate that's higher, but we're already on 160, so that's usually fine, but...
Maybe up it. I don't know.
Oh, well, let's put up to 1...
I'll check.
Yeah, YouTube's upper limit is 160.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it sounding all right on your end?
It's okay. It's not terrible, but it does sound compressed.
Yeah. I think it's just something to do with YouTube, but
okay.
Who knows? Because I don't have any. Do I have any audio settings enabled here? Hopefully not.
Well, we could sit here and fiddle around with it.
Yeah,
let's just get on with it.
Yeah, let's get on with it.
Okay, so yeah, can you up the bit rate? What have we got it at?
I've got it at 6,000, but most of that's on the video anyway.
Okay.
And it's at 1080p.
Okay.
So unless there's any settings in this YouTube dashboard, because there's so much stuff so many settings that you can change on these sort of things.
Well, we'll get this worked out by later this year.
Yeah, by the time that we post some public live streams, everything will be perfectly fine. So I guess for the Patreons who are watching the recorded version, you probably should have skipped the past couple of minutes of us fiddling around on the stream.
Hopefully everyone just jumped. How many minutes are we in? Couple of minutes.
Who knows? Yeah, a couple of minutes.
Not saying, but anyway.
We've been live for almost 5 minutes now. So...
Okay. Well, apologies.
Yeah, fun stuff.
All right. what are we going to start with? Questions or just discuss some topics?
Yeah, so a couple of the questions from the Discord we were going to put in the public Q&A that we're going to film just after this, that you'll probably see tomorrow on the channel, I think.
Okay.
But there was one question I thought was interesting I didn't really want to talk about on the public channel, but someone asked us on Revel Devil asked us about. Let me just get his question up. So yeah, he asked us about the leaked Ryzen 2 performance stuff.
Okay.
So I didn't want to put this in the public one because we can't really say much, but obviously we're very close to doing launch-related things for Ryzen 2.
Yeah, have to be very careful what we say, actually.
So I think it's well known that the launch will be in April. So as you can imagine, we're close to being having to do stuff with AMD on that. So so we're not really going to talk about the leak performance stuff on the main channel because it's a bit precarious.
Yeah, I've seen quite a few different reports as well. There was one just yesterday or the day before, wasn't there?
So I think that's the one that Nick on the
okay, I didn't look into it
on
too
the
much.
Q&A was talking about. So he said, have you looked into the 17% performance improvements over first gen Ryzen? I'm highly skeptical. And the main question was, would AMD have even seeded any reviewers with parts yet? And that's the thing. So I responded if you hadn't seen it in the Discord, but I basically said no.
Well, the leaks that you guys see like a month or over 2 weeks at least, because it's very rare we get more than 1 week with this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So those earlier leaks, they're usually retail, sort of stuff. Engineering samples. Yeah. It's hard to say how and it's usually like the Chinese get their hands on it earlier or something, or it's not as tightly monitored.
Testing motherboards, all that sort of thing.
That's generally how it works, which is why you don't get a whole battery of benchmarks and anything too professional. I would say, without having any idea, because we don't have it ourselves, those results are probably pretty accurate based on what I saw. But how much of that 17% was frequency?
So the leaked rumors at the moment are currently I think they tested with the Ryzen 2700X, did they?
I only looked at it briefly.
The Ryzen 7 2700X. So the rumors for that chip, I believe, were 3.7 gigahertz base and 4.35 gigahertz boost.
Okay.
Because there was recently this pre-order pages went live, I think maybe a bit too early. And some of them had sort of clock speed specs on it, and I think those were the clock speeds. So
without having, that sounds like up to about 10% there could just be clock speed.
Yeah,
it?
And they were measuring against the 1700X some of the stuff that I was looking at. So again, from what we've seen and what has been published publicly previously, that we sort of saw around CES, the architecture is not significantly changed.
No.
So it's going to be a situation like with Intel's, Kaby Lake and so forth, where most of it will be clock speed because they're moving the process node to 12 nanometer. That should give more headroom for pushing the frequency up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, yeah, that's right. I was hoping for a bit more on the IPC front, a bit more optimization, latency and that sort of stuff improved, but. Yeah, we'll have to see. I personally don't get very excited by the leaked stuff or the rumors or whatever. I just hold out and wait for the actual official stuff because it can be misleading, and so it's better. I don't know. Personally, it just doesn't excite me, so I don't go trolling through them all and trying to work out, what's what and whether it might be accurate or not because you just don't know. And I did ask my AMD contact about it last week, what he thought of the leaked stuff and that, and he just sort of laughed and said, well, you'll have to wait and see. Like he was hinting at that it's better than what people are showing now. So
yeah, and again, with the benchmarks that were shown there were two separate leaks from what I was looking into. There was a Geekbench leak and something from CSoft, who makes like Sandra. And
that's what I saw.
So the thing with those benchmarks is, firstly, both of them are quite low-level benchmarks. So they will do stuff like, an integer addition and like benchmark that and like, a copy to memory or something. A lot of those, especially Geekbench, which is why I personally don't use it very much. We don't really use those benchmarks on the channel.
Well, AMD was also very, like, Ryzen was also, it was very good at that sort of stuff already. It didn't where it struggled is gaming. So I'm wondering if there's been, they've refined the PCI Express interface, the memory lane, all that stuff. Yeah. I'm wondering if we'll see bigger gains in the games than we will in your sort of productivity type workloads.
So that's the thing, is like with all these leaks, you're only getting like a tiny piece of the puzzle. And, we do so much benchmarking here that you sort of get the picture across a whole bunch of workloads, especially stuff that people are actually going to use, like, testing Excel and Premiere and rendering.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas like a Geekbench or a Csoft are just like nothing. They're like synthetic, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's why people ask me why I don't use 3D Mark and stuff like that, and the Heaven benchmark, and I'm like, well, I just see it as being a waste of time. It's good. It's a useful tool for measuring if you're getting the performance that you should be getting, because it's harder to work that out with games. But yeah, they're pretty useless to include in GPU comparisons and things like that, at least in my opinion.
So getting back to the original question, which was about seeding with reviews with parts, we can say here, no, we haven't gotten parts yet.
No. Well, we know that. I've got to be careful what I say here. Has the official release date been announced?
No.
Oh, okay.
I haven't even been told.
I think we can say the. Oh, okay. So we don't even know the official release date.
No.
For some reason, I thought I was under the impression that I did.
The pre-order leak stuff suggested April 19.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'd say that's very accurate.
We don't know. Yeah. But that sounds about right.
I'd say that's very accurate.
So the other thing is, like,
that's one thing I will confirm off that leaked information.
So the other thing that is interesting is, like, whenever you see this leaked stuff come out, if major publications are talking about the results, that tends to be, we haven't signed an NDA yet.
Yeah, we're free to speculate.
So in this case, with the leaked Ryzen results, websites like Tom's Hardware, which would obviously be sampled Ryzen 2, we're just fully publishing this stuff.
Okay.
So if you're ever wondering about, like, when have we got samples yet? Are we under NDA? Like, how close is the release? If you see leaks and major websites aren't covering them, we're probably pretty close to being able to tell you guys fully. But at this stage, we haven't got samples.
No.
We're not under NDA, but, like, it's getting to...
Are we? I thought we'd signed some stuff for...
That's relating to something else that we can't talk about.
Okay.
Relating to the launch. But...
Yeah, well...
Let's just say we're under NDA for some stuff, but in terms of the performance numbers, we haven't seen anything official. We haven't seen the official release date or pricing.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at with Ryzen 2.
Yeah, it's safe to say it's about 4 weeks away now.
Yeah. And so we're coming to the point where if you're thinking of buying any sort of processor, just wait.
Yes. Well, definitely, and especially if you want to build... All I'll say is if you want to build a budget or an affordable type system...
there's something else
with a certain
very soon.
With a certain Blue Man Group. I would hold off a few weeks on that one because they're very close.
Yeah, so probably straying very close to what we can and can't say on that.
Might have crossed the line on that one, but anyway, it's just...
And there's actually a third Intel related launch under NDA for next month.
Yeah, that's been more talked about though, hasn't it? Like they've actually I don't know.
Okay, so
stop putting me in hot water here.
So Kaby Lake G.
Yeah.
So this is a question that I was probably going to answer a little bit as well in the Q&A. But so someone asked us about Kaby Lake G. HP and Dell have told me, and I can tell you because they haven't told me not to tell you, that
good.
Their laptops are launching in April for Kaby Lake G.
So April, it's going to get exciting in April.
Yeah, so
things are happening.
So in April, we've got probably Ryzen 2.
Yeah, definitely.
Another thing that we can't talk about.
Well, that people keep asking when the affordable Coffee Lake chipsets are coming. So we know that it's a B360. Like that. Yeah,
there's been leaks.
That's pretty well confirmed. There's a H310, a H370, or is it a B310? I can't remember. Anyway, there's 3 more affordable chipsets than the Z370.
Yeah.
And they're all coming out next month.
Yeah. So they're very going to be. That's another thing to add to the list. And then Kaby Lake G will be coming out in that month. And there's the NUC as well. So we're in talks with
and
Intel
we should be getting a sample of that, or we're trying to anyway.
And the other launch I was referring to is similar to Kaby Lake G, and there's been some benchmark that there's been some rumors of these processors as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can.
Yeah, basically, there's a lot of stuff coming next month.
Yeah, so next month will be huge, and
it's been pretty quiet all year. Obviously, it's been a bit boring. We had the APUs, but they're very niche, and realistically, if GPU prices weren't ridiculous, there wouldn't be that much reason to buy an APU. So, yeah, AMD kind of got lucky on two fronts there. They sold Vega because of the cryptocurrency mining, and Raven Ridge actually has more purpose than it probably should because the entry-level stuff's so expensive.
Yeah.
So, because what's an RX 550? They're like $140 US or something.
They're going up heaps. It's no good.
They're close to the price of a 2400G. And the 2400G overclocked is very similar to the RX 550, but you're basically getting a quad-core 8-threaded CPU thrown in for free. So it's obviously better to buy one of those. But yeah, so next month's going to be really good. I'm excited because it's been...
And of course, we have as well, like, a couple of games as well, like Far Cry 5.
I just pre-ordered that on Steam. I'm loving how it's on Steam.
Yeah, so Far Cry 5 obviously comes out March 27th.
Yeah, I think it's... 7 days, yep.
Sea of Thieves came out today, I think. Because it's a Windows Store game, I'm not sure what you think about benchmarking that.
Yeah.
Windows Store games are a piece of shit. They are terrible to work with.
They are. It looked like a pretty good game, but I don't think I'll bother. It's one of the reasons why I dropped Gears of War 4 as well, because it's just a nightmare.
Yeah.
Just even because, I mean, I, as you can probably imagine, do fresh installs of Windows a lot, reconfigure everything, have to load in the Steam library off SSDs and stuff, and the Windows Store doing that is a nightmare. Steam is the best of all of them. Steam, you just copy it to the folder, go into Steam, click on the game, click install, and boom, it just loads it all.
With the new games as well, allows you to do that.
Okay.
So you can copy the folder over and click download, and it will just...
Origin does it as well, and Uplay.
Yeah.
But Origin's
a bit worse.
Because
you have to like click to download, then pause it, copy it, and then
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I've found with some of the games, though, again, I don't know if they've changed that like Ubisoft has, but some of the games just work. Like, I think Battlefield 1, you can just copy that. Actually, no. The way I get around that is because that was a nightmare. I install Origin, I copy all the games, then in the app, your personal, like the roaming data folder, I delete Origin from there and then copy the one that recognizes the games, then load Origin and it recognizes. So that's the way. Trick, actually. That's the way around that. Because after wasting countless hours trying to reconfigure test systems, I found that is the fastest way to do that. So But anyway, Far Cry 5 is on Steam, so I'm very happy.
Yeah.
Ubisoft will give us a free copy anyway on Uplay. So,
but we want to. Yeah, sometimes these game companies, they're not necessarily will give it before launch.
Yeah,
it just depends who.
Yeah, I got it so I can preload it. So and I want to do a behind the scenes video. I'm going to try and work out because I probably will benchmark for at least 16 hours straight. So it's going to be
fun stuff.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'll record that in 720p or 1080p because I'll have to, I'll be filling the card, then I'll have to dump it, record again. So I'll have to work out a way of. I suppose I could just stream it to my computer, but if something went wrong and I lost all 16 hours worth of footage, I'd be pretty devastated.
Yeah.
So it might be better to do it.
External thing with the capture card or something.
Yeah, might be safer to do it sort of incremental, but we'll work that anyway. But yeah, I really want to film changing 40 plus GPUs in and out of the test system and running all the benchmark runs 3 times and taking the averages and doing all that. So that's a behind the scenes video that will be pretty epic, I reckon. So it's going to
be good.
It's going to take a lot of time and effort, but I think it's going to be worth doing. So
yeah. So Thomas the Dank Engine has just posted something. He says, "I've always wondered about reinstalling Windows. I get the impression many reviewers move the same Windows install drive around from system to system."
Oh man, you could get me going on that one for ages. You
shouldn't.
I won't name any names, but I've had a few arguments with a few different YouTubers about how Ryzen performs and things like that. And I actually want to do a video on this, but it'll take a bit of time to present it properly. But this is an actual fact, and I've spoke with Steve from Gamers Nexus about it, and he has confirmed it 100%, and he's actually come across some US YouTubers who are being lazy and running into this problem. If you install Windows 10 on an Intel system and run all your benchmarks and it all works fine, and then take that boot drive, the SSD, and put it in a Ryzen system, even if you scrub the Intel drivers, use driver run installer, do the best you can to scrub the system, reinstall the display drivers, install the Ryzen chipset drivers, do all that, I've never found a way to do that without losing at least 10% of Ryzen's performance. And sometimes it's up to like 20 or worse. Yeah. Something just, it doesn't work. It's really bad. And it's not like that happens sometimes. If you do a fresh copy on an Intel system, move it to any Ryzen system, you'll see at least a 10% drop in performance. And if you install it on a Ryzen system and go to an Intel system, you see a 5 to 10% drop for Intel. It's not as bad going from AMD to Intel. But yeah, I'm pretty sure there are quite a few reviewers that do that, because sometimes the numbers just look like what I see. And it's really obvious, like Battlefield 1 you run, it's way down. So yeah, I actually have two separate libraries. I have AMD install and Intel install, and I still do refresh that quite often because I have ways of measuring how it is going. But yeah, you will definitely, it's a bad thing to do, doing one install for AMD and Intel. So
yeah, so that's the thing, is that we just use a lot of, swapping SSDs, but you have to make sure that everything is matched. It's a real pain in the backside updating, because with the amount of games that we test, and like I have a 2 terabyte SSD and that's full with all the application software. Then I have another drive where I have a lot of the games that I don't test that often that I load off that. Yeah, it is a pretty big job getting it all set up fine. And especially with laptops, it takes like a bit of extra time, because almost every laptop is shipped with it's a version of Windows behind.
Oh, okay.
So like you have to update Windows, and that sometimes takes freaking ages.
Well, even then, I like to download the ISO from Microsoft. It's the most up-to-date one, because I even find installing the updates can break Windows.
Yeah, so what I do is I download the updates and then reset the system.
Mm-hmm.
So then it's like fully fresh.
Okay.
And also sometimes with the consumer products, companies will ship it with more than what's installed out of the box on it.
Oh yeah.
Like a lot of laptops still ship with freaking Norton or Symantec antivirus.
So bad.
Which I leave installed for testing.
Yeah. Well.
So if you ever see our laptop reviews, the crappy antivirus is still installed, because
that's how the consumer will get it.
Yeah, if HP is, selling out and still is shipping it with this garbage, right? Should be tested with it on. Anyway.
Yeah.
So
no, I think for laptop reviews that makes sense.
Yeah. So, but then for testing any games or whatever, I as well have an external SSD, and I just either copy the games over if the storage drive is large enough, or just run it from the SSD.
Mm-hmm.
Depending.
If you're comparing like CPUs from two laptops, then a fresh install makes sense for that. But if you're reviewing the laptop, then I think the condition that the consumer gets it in probably makes sense to test it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, because I know most people uninstall that crap, but it's still unreasonable to assume that they're going to do a fresh install, and it's just pain in the backside, a lot of work, and I can't imagine most people don't update their drivers, so most people aren't going to do a fresh install as soon as they buy a $2,000 laptop.
Yeah. So I mean, like from what I've seen, even uninstalling Norton and Symantec or whatever has very little performance impact, if anything. But sometimes there'll be just compatibility problems with it. Like you'll try and run something and Norton will just like completely block it because it's a terrible antivirus software.
Yeah, I would imagine it would probably impact storage testing a lot more than actual gameplay.
Yeah, can't say I've looked into that too much, as opposed to the more application testing stuff.
Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, personally, I would always uninstall that stuff.
Oh yeah, I don't even run any of it. So, but do you actually use a virus scanner, or do you
I just
use
Windows Defender?
Yeah.
Don't come and hack me now, or send viruses to my system. Now that you know, but
well, I mean that's kind of it though. Like, how do you get a virus? I suppose going to a dodgy website, or when it says some email, it's like, you have an infringement notice. Click on this executable file to find out more.
Yeah, click this .pdf.exe or whatever.
And I mean, even the way a lot of email servers are set up these days, you don't really get that stuff much anymore.
Yeah, because a lot of the time, Gmail and stuff will give you tons of warnings about if you send a .exe in a Gmail.
I don't think it makes it through.
They'll flag it.
Do they strip it out of the email? I think they do.
I think they either flag it as like, this is a potentially dodgy executable, so yeah, we're not letting you.
You probably haven't got a speeding fine, or your bank account probably hasn't been hacked, and you don't need to click this executable to solve it.
They tell you about phishing and all that stuff there.
Yeah.
But, Windows, since obviously Windows XP days, like back then the antivirus was very lackluster in Windows, but nowadays it's...
Well, I mean, I don't trust Defender, but I think I have it enabled.
Yeah, it's just about being safe online.
I've never ever got a virus or
like
the rants. I've had a few friends and stuff that I've had to try and help them with ransomware. That's a nightmare. What a disaster.
Yeah.
So that actually, when we were talking about the CT Labs thing before, it made me laugh. I'm like, ransomware is definitely way worse than any of that stuff. And anyway.
Well, did I ever tell you that so my girlfriend works as a nurse at the Royal Melbourne Hospital. Did she ever tell you about the ransomware at the Royal Melbourne?
No.
So the Royal Melbourne's IT system is almost entirely Windows XP.
Oh, wow.
So very outdated. And they got hit with ransomware. It was very recent, within the last 6 months.
I think that was a global thing, wasn't it?
Yeah,
a lot of healthcare.
And it took the hospital more than 2 months to get rid of it. So they were switching back to paper charting for all the patients.
That's terrible.
All the drugs which they'd normally put into the computers at every bed were basically everything had to be written down. And then after that, obviously, someone has to go and take all those documents and put it into the system when it's fixed. So
I don't know.
I don't think that was.
Well, Dan's saying his work still uses XP as well. Would Windows 10 though have avoided that, or does it?
I think it was a Windows XP specific ransomware.
Okay. Windows 10 would probably help reduce the spread of it because it has better network security. But I mean, you can still run a ransomware executable on a computer if Windows Defender hadn't been updated or was disabled.
Especially if you give it admin privileges, that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. You can have some shortcuts created though to execute with admin privileges, can't you?
I think it depends on the level of that. That filter, the safety filter. If you turn that off, then you'll be.
Oh, okay, yeah. What is it? The UAC or user access control? I'm just guessing.
It depends on the level
called.
of that is.
Okay, yep. No worries.
Definitely on my system, anytime I get admin privileges, I have to approve it. And they've got Smart Screen as well, so if you download an exe that it hasn't heard of before, you'll have to click through to run it.
Yeah, well, that's what Jared's saying. He's saying Windows 10 has a lot of built-in mitigations these days, so that's true. You definitely have a lot less chance of running into those problems on an updated Windows 10 machine than you do Windows XP.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, fun stuff.
Yeah, but that's pretty common, I think, worldwide for critical systems in hospitals and things running Windows XP.
It's so embarrassing. You go in and you see
I mean, it's
15 years old now. More than that, 17 years old.
Yeah, it's bad. I mean, now that it's been exposed, they'll probably change how they prioritize their budgets. But I mean, they've only got a budget of so much, and they've spending it on computers probably isn't too high on their list of things to spend money on.
And IT and medical certified IT equipment is exactly the same hardware, but 5 times the price for everything. These basic medical monitors. I
don't know much.
$5,000 for a 1080p TN, really basic thing, but it's medical grade or something.
Well, yeah, I don't. I mean, what does medical grade mean? I always assumed it had a lot of built-in redundancy and stuff like that, so it couldn't go down or fail. So if something there was failover for literally everything,
and probably a lot of support extended for a long time.
But I have absolutely no idea about medical equipment, so I'd have to do a bit of research to confirm that.
Oh, it's all so expensive.
Oh, I can just anything that's specialized is absurd. Okay. Do we have anything else in the chat or anything like that? Otherwise, we can just talk about random things.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that came out this week that we we made the video on it, or I made the video on the AMD sort of the CTS Labs stuff.
Yeah.
Sort of because that we were talking just before off air, like, is it just a virus? Like, have this company just made viruses?
Yeah, I mean, well, that sort of was my question.
Yeah.
I benchmark graphics cards and CPUs and enjoy doing that. I don't pretend to be a security expert or anything like I've never had a virus, so
yeah.
I've got no experience dealing with them. I don't hack or create anything like that. I'm not even. I know basic HTML and PHP, so not a hacker.
I do better than me there.
Well, I used to make my website and all that in the databases.
I can program MATLAB. That's about it.
So yeah, no, are we dropping frames or is that just me over here?
I think it's just you. I've got this green square here that tells me.
Alright, it's just my laptop is struggling to keep up.
So we have been dropping a few frames.
Okay. A few or a lot? 1%?
Yeah.
No one's complaining. Maybe it's just
But I think that's due to network issues because I'm not even close to using the CPU of this laptop.
It would be. I'm on wireless NBN. We were actually worried it might drop out midstream. So if it does, don't go anywhere. We will be kept back shortly. It only takes about a minute for my modem to do whatever it needs to do. But yeah, getting back to that, not an expert on this kind of stuff, and I haven't read much about it because it just seems like a complete and utter joke. So I really don't have. I have very little time. And so I spend that doing stuff to make good content for the channel. And that didn't really seem like something we want to spend too much time and energy chasing after all. Keen to see what AMD come out with, what they say. I don't doubt that again, what English do we use here? The vulnerabilities or the viruses that they've made do what they say. But it's just...
the main thing is it needs admin privileges, and you can do anything when you have admin privileges. That's how people install viruses, right? You're running something with admin privileges, and then there you go.
Yeah. So this is all info from others in forums.
So yeah, I mean, the video that I made I tried to keep it fairly diplomatic, but my personal opinion is that it's a big load of shit. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think it's malware viruses because it's not a vulnerability.
Yeah, but the thing is, even if there are some vulnerabilities, like you could, flash the firmware of your motherboard and change stuff, or you could.
Well, you can definitely do that anyway.
Yeah, you could install a signed driver and do stuff.
Yeah.
Like, sure, that might be a vulnerability in the sense that if you install a signed driver that's booby-trapped, that you'll be able to run viruses through it. But, because you need to install a signed driver and you need to have, admin privileges to install the drive or to flash the BIOS or to run any of these things, it's just it's not an issue because anything can be done when you have those privileges.
Yeah. So I think it's just, it's obvious why they were doing it. It was market manipulation. I was laughing thinking about it before. They probably would have made more money if they had have put Google ads on their AMDflaws.com website for all the traffic they got, because they haven't made any money out of market manipulation. So yeah. Anyway, it basically just turned out to be a huge waste of everyone's time, including their own, because I don't think they made any money off it or could have.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's
just dumb.
It was dumb.
Yeah.
Very dumb. So,
you wake up one morning and you see this garbage and you're like...
Well, that's it. We woke up and we're like, wow, okay, is this a big deal or not? And I was really frustrated. I don't think they changed the title on techspot.com, because I actually heard about it. I woke up to check TechSpot and I saw this. I'm like, and they're like, Meltdown Spectre vulnerabilities for AMD. I was like, wow, okay, what's going on here? And I read into it, I'm like, wow, this sounds all terrible. And then I did a bit more reading. I'm like, this sounds very suspect. And then I jumped, and then I remember we got on the phone and started talking about it. And while Tim and I were talking on the phone, I went to their website. I think that was the website for, what was the other company involved in it?
The one that published the report suspiciously at the exact same time.
Yeah, what was their name?
Forget. Completely forget.
Yeah, it's tip of my tongue. Anyway, I went over to their website and I read the disclaimer and I'm reading it to Tim and I'm just laughing at the disclaimer on their website.
So bad.
No one can be taking this seriously. Started with V or something.
Yeah.
That's how much time and energy I've wasted on this story.
So while we do, you might have seen a lot of our content in a written version on TechSpot. First of all, neither of us are in the news team for starters, so that's all separate. And also, we're basically freelancers for them.
Yeah, I directly asked them, guys, change the title. Like, it's bad.
So yeah, the reporting from Viceroy Research.
Viceroy, I knew it started.
Kerry in the chat said that, so thanks for that.
Yeah, cool.
And so for me.
My brain was starting to hurt.
So yeah, the TechSpot article wasn't great, but once you start getting into like Gamers Nexus's coverage, which was their article on it, and their investigation was fantastic.
Really good. Yeah.
So yeah, just very dodgy. Very, very dodgy.
Yeah, I mean, it was I think most media. I don't know who actually fell for it. I don't know who actually posted as, oh my god, this is terrible. AMD's done for.
The companies the publications that were less sort of in our space. Like if you're sort of thinking about all the enthusiast websites like Gamers Nexus and PC Perspective and Nantech. Tom's Hardware. None of those I think really fell for it.
No.
And Nantech in particular. So we are back now.
Yeah, we should be back now.
Yeah. So yeah, sorry about that.
That's the wireless NBN striking.
So yeah, at my place I've got fiber to the premises.
Yeah.
You've got fixed wireless.
Yeah, I think my problem's iPrimus.
Yeah.
So I'm hopefully going to have that resolved soon. But yeah.
Yeah. Actually, one of the questions I saw, and I'm pretty sure this wasn't on Discord, so the person that asked this question is probably never going to see this answer.
Oh.
But someone asked us what NBN providers we're with, and has been our sort of opinion with the NBN. So if you're watching this from outside of Australia, the NBN is our government rollout of various technologies. It was originally going to be mostly fiber to the premises, then it changed to a whole bunch of different technologies. But basically they're wanting to improve our internet connectivity, because a lot of places had ADSL or cable.
Which I had ADSL.
Yeah, I had previously had ADSL. I moved place, I had cable. So they were trying to roll out fiber. Anyway, basically it's a government rollout of faster internet as a monopoly. So basically, like there's a whole bunch of different companies you can buy the NBN service from, but it all runs through the same cables and it's all the same service.
Well, it was like that anyway with Telstra.
Yeah. So basically, that's the situation with there. So I have fiber to the premises and I get 100 meg down, 40 up all the time. And I'm with Telecube. So if you're an Australian and you want a really good provider, Telecube's been fantastic. Unfortunately, they have I'm limited to 1,000 gig, which I get very close to using up with, work stuff.
Mine's fully unlimited.
Yeah. So I want to move to a provider that's fully unlimited, but my experiences with it have actually been like very few dropouts, really good speeds in peak. I've been really happy with it, but obviously not everyone has fiber to the premises.
Phone?
No, we're reconnecting. We're back again.
Okay. If it does it again, we'll change over to my 4G because that's just annoying. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, so you can see the dropouts in effect here.
So it's back streaming now, though?
Yeah, because when this green thing goes red and the kilobits...
Well, if it does it again, we'll change over to my phone's 4G, because, that's just really annoying.
Yeah.
Okay, mobile hotspot on.
Okay, I'll switch over to it. So we're probably streaming again, but we're just about to change...
Okay, that should solve the problem for us. Yes, in Australia, so it's very difficult dealing with them, and I'm just sick of it. I'm just going to write out the last 2 months and change to a different ISP.
Yeah, so from what I've heard and from other people I know that are on the NBN, Telecube. So someone in the chat did mention this whole thing about CVC, which is the amount of bandwidth that ISPs effectively purchase. And a lot of people have problems with speeds in peak times because their ISP doesn't provide enough bandwidth. So users are everyone's using it for Netflix or whatever at 6 p.m. It hits the cap, and while you could get better speeds physically on the infrastructure, your ISP is just cheaping out and not buying the capacity.
Yeah.
So so for me on Telecube and Aussie Broadband are two companies that are well known to have excellent CVC. And personally, I never drop below the maximum speed, no matter what time of day.
Okay.
So my service is fantastic. I know some people on Aussie Broadband, it's fantastic. My parents are on fiber to the node with Exetel, and they've been quite happy with it as well. Exetel offers unlimited plans, and they used to be fairly poor in terms of their service, but now they're a bit better, apparently.
I'll have to see what they offer me.
Whereas the ones that are not as good are like Optus, TPG, iPrimus, Internode's gone downhill. So those are the sort of ones to avoid.
Yeah.
But that's a very Australian-specific discussion.
Well, yeah, it is.
there.
It is.
But
Definitely.
yeah, so obviously our internet is still in many places well behind other parts of the world. So I would love to be able to get more than 100 megabit and 40 megabit down and 40 megabit up. I would love to get gigabit. I would pay whatever it takes to get that. But they will not supply me with the faster speed than I can get. I can get 4 simultaneous 100 megabit connections and use a router that does link aggregation.
Yep.
But
link aggregation doesn't.
It's not that good.
Well, it won't make your bandwidth 4 times greater.
Yes, that's right.
It's only good if you have a massive business with lots of people.
Yeah, and you're streaming. You're using different streams. Like if you're doing single stream.
The most you'll ever get is the peak speed of 1 connection. So you could essentially have 4 people maxing out a single connection 4 times.
Yeah. So someone asked you, Steve, what speeds you get on the wireless? You're on 50, right?
It's 50 down, 20 up, which, you know...
It's better than ADSL,
It's
right?
ADSL's
terrible.
Yeah, I'm encoding now at 100 megabits, 4K, 60 FPS. So some of the files I'm uploading are almost 20 gig in size, and it's doable on this connection. Whereas with ADSL, it's like, okay, start uploading. I'll come back in 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
So that's not even a joke. Like it would literally take you 3 or 4 days.
Yeah. Like even coming from cable, like I used to get 2 meg up on cable, like HFC, and yeah, it used to take like maybe 5 or 6 hours to upload our 4K videos on it.
Yeah.
And now that I've got 40 up, it's like I can make the video, like film it, edit it, and upload it in the same day. Like I never would have been able to do that before.
Yeah, I can do that on mine. Sometimes I find like with the latest unboxing boxes episode I did, which was almost half an hour, it took longer for YouTube to process that than anything else, and then it didn't actually make it live in 4K, which I didn't realize because I uploaded it. I uploaded it overnight, so it was done by like 8 in the morning, and it still wasn't processed in anything other than 360 or whatever it is. There's an interesting question here which I've thought about a lot, and I do want to do a video on this, but it's going to take a lot of time.
So yeah, go through the question.
So the question is, one thing I'd like to see is by either me or Tim or long-haired Steve, so Gamers Nexus Steve, is an investigation or report on CPU usage, and at what point does 100% utilization actually represent a decrease in frame rates, average FPS, 1% lows, and etc. That is a really, well, I've thought about it. I'm not even going to try and explain it here because I'm not going to be able to think it through because it's really complicated. But CPU utilization is something that is very misunderstood, but that's because it is really complicated. So you want to avoid maxing your CPU out constantly, because that can result in dropped frames, stutter, stuff like that. It can. But then you don't want the CPU to be heavily underutilized, like we see in like an AMD FX versus Sandy Bridge kind of comparison. Because when I tested the Bulldozer 8-core, whatever you want to call it, 4-module thing, against the 2500K, so that's a quad-core versus an 8-threaded CPU. And the Bulldozer CPU utilization was only around 60-70% from memory, whereas the Sandy Bridge processor was locked at 100%. So you'd expect most people go, oh, it's maxed out, that CPU, it's going to have stuttering and drop frames, and neither of them was smooth, perfectly smooth. But the Sandy Bridge processor was much smoother and much higher frame rates.
Yeah.
And the FX processor, I mean, that has design issues there that cause that to bottleneck internally, and it isn't being utilized that well by the software.
Yeah, so that's basically the issue, right?
So there's a lot of different issues. It's like, how well does the game engine utilize the processor? How well does the processor work when it's being fully utilized? There's so many things there, and depending on the situation, 100% could be good or bad. and then being underutilized could be good or bad. So if you're getting the maximum performance out of the GPU in any set game, then the lower the utilization, the better. But then if you've got low CPU utilization and the GPU is not working anywhere near its full potential, that's also bad.
Yeah.
So it's a really, really tough one to tackle.
Yeah, I think.
And I don't think there's any
What's
one.
Happened? Oh, I think the camera's gone to sleep.
Oh, is it going flat? This is why we don't do this on the main channel, guys.
Yeah, it has the batteries.
I'll quickly fix that.
Okay.
You sit down so I can refocus.
So the thing here is that the audio is still on.
Yep.
So you guys will be hearing us. But big amateur hour here with our streaming. So
this is all the stuff we've got to work out.
Yeah. So yeah, you need to refocus it as well. But our video's back.
Is that all okay?
Yeah, that's good. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, so we're kind of been. So our plan for the future is to continue to use. Continue to do the Patreon live streams, but we've just been starting to do this sort of stuff.
So we've got to put the camera on mains power. We need to get a DC power pack for it.
Yeah.
So that, like we have with the audio.
Yeah.
So that way, because obviously the camera doesn't last long enough. Even the GH5 won't last long enough. So we're using the G85 at the moment.
Yeah. So the thing is, like, our plan eventually is to run both Patreon exclusive live streams and main channel live streams.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, we're using some of this experience from the Patreon ones to...
Got to get more practice at it and work things out.
So the plan, I think, for the future is we'll run a main channel one, then do like an after show on Patreon for you guys.
So, I mean...
Because it's very easy to read all of your comments in this thread and respond to you guys individually. But if we do on the main channel, you know, it'll be, a lot more difficult. So, the question was 100% utilization.
So it's something I want to look into and test, but... there has to be a different test methods to what I've been. There's a lot of things to factor in there. The game engine, the CPUs. It's really a difficult one. You can almost only answer it on a per game basis, really.
Yeah. So 100% utilization doesn't tell you a lot about how the CPU is actually being utilized.
No.
Because, for example, if you run a video encode and then try and play, like it's using 100% of your CPU and try and play a game, you'll be struggling big time.
It depends on how many cores the CPU has, and then you have to manually assign resources.
Oh, I'm assuming like the game is also using 100% if you weren't encoding.
Well, right? That's.
So, but then again, a game using 100% doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be stuttering, because if the instructions,
that's the misconception.
If the instructions can still be sent immediately, like the next in the queue whenever they need to be, and the rest of the utilization is DRM. Let's take Assassin's Creed Origins, for example, which runs very high CPU utilization, but still it gives you pretty good experience on some systems.
One way to explain it is it's like saying if your GPU is 100% utilized, you would see frame stuttering. Yeah. It's like, no, you want it to be 100% utilized, and you really want your CPU to be fully utilized.
Yeah.
So
then it's making the most of all this hardware that you bought.
Yeah, that's right. So it's a tough one, but I also get that when the CPU is over, so it's wanting to be used 110%, but it can only use 100%.
And then it can't queue the frame, like the instructions to process the frames.
Then you see dropped frames. But that's, so it's basically a complicated one. You have to sit and think about it and really test probably a few different hardware configurations, obviously, test a few different of the latest and most demanding games and work things out like that. But again, it comes down to the architecture of the CPU as well, because we've seen some, you can have a 4-core Intel CPU taking on an 8-threaded Ryzen CPU and delivering similar results and maybe even smoother performance because the way it's designed. So it's a tricky one.
Yeah. So Thomas the Dankanger also asked, does GPU utilization always reveal
a bottleneck? Well, a bottleneck of sorts. It doesn't necessarily mean you've got a CPU bottleneck. It usually means that, but it doesn't necessarily, because it could just mean that you. Well, it's definitely a bottleneck of either like the game engine, so if you're playing at a super low resolution or something, or and it's not even necessarily that the CPU is underpowered. It's that the game engine might only be using 1 core instead of all 4 or 8 or whatever you've got. But yeah. It's a bottleneck of some kind. In some situations, that may mean you're just getting so much performance anyway, it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, and then there's things like architecture-specific bottlenecks. Like your GPU might be running at 100% utilization, but you're on an AMD GPU with a lot of tessellation, so it's like choking it there, or on the equivalent of NVIDIA is like async compute. Like
I mean that's why people a lot of passionate AMD Ryzen fans say you should benchmark at 4K because that's where I game. And obviously when you bench at 4K, all you're testing is a GPU because there's no GPU that's so powerful at 4K that it'll expose any weakness of even a basic quad core. Like you could use a Ryzen 3 1200 basically, unless it's like Ashes of the Singularity or something like that.
A game that no one plays, but everyone loves to benchmark.
You love it whenever I mention it. Well, technically, it's a brilliant game. Like, from a technical
perspective, it's really impressive.
Like, you look at, like, really popular real-time strategy games like StarCraft 2, which you have a 200-unit cap in StarCraft 2.
Your favorite game of all time,
well,
right?
It's actually a 200 food cap units. It's not even 200 units. You have nowhere near 200 units in StarCraft. And if you have a 4v4 with 4 teams maxed out, you can have a 5 gigahertz 8700K and it just runs like garbage. And that's because of core utilization and things like that. Whereas Ashes, you can have multiple players with hundreds, thousands of units, and it's silky smooth in DirectX 12 on reasonable hardware. So yeah, if it's not CNC, you're not interested. Man, I love CNC. They made a Windows version of it a year or maybe a couple of years ago now, and I tried it out. I'm like, it's like movies. They're better off, like old movies. They're better off just remembering them for how they were.
Yeah.
I loved CNC. Oh, Ashes of the Benchmark. That old gem.
Yes. So.
Yeah. So anyway, that's going to be a tough one. I would like to. We sort of address it in a way on a per game basis when a new game comes out, and I do CPU testing.
Yeah.
And you're really testing more the game engine than even the CPUs, because we see that the Ryzen CPUs are down on performance compared to the Intel stuff, but then they're not even half as well utilized, and that's going to take a long time to change because.
Yeah. So Far Cry 5, for example, is Ryzen optimized. Allegedly.
Bit like Prey. So Prey does run quite well on Ryzen processors, really well actually, but it's not.
It's still not quite there, but they.
Yeah, it could be sometime.
Architecture difference.
Yeah, I'm very keen to see how Far Cry 5, and I'll definitely be doing a lot of CPU. I'll probably do the usual 40 plus GPUs, then I'll do 20 plus CPUs, and probably make 2 different videos. So that'll be good. And yeah, again, do the behind the scenes stuff. I'll probably do the GPUs first, and if the behind the scenes video for that's well received, I'll put in the effort and do the CPU testing as well, because that's a bit different. I've got about 12 complete rigs, so test systems so cases, power supply, motherboard, memory, the whole lot. 12 unique test systems, though. Then so there's a Ryzen one where I change Ryzen CPU, so I usually try and do 2 at a time. So if I get 2 Steam accounts, 2 copies of Far Cry 5, I can go ballistic. So I might get a copy on yours, or if they give me I think the Uplay, does that have like the DRM stuff where you can only do like 5 hardware changes?
The DRM is the same from Steam.
Is it? Oh, it's the same.
Steam launches a Uplay client to launch the game for you.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Yeah, so
But if you, I mean,
because
I want to play it.
Yeah. Origin is terrible.
We'll get Ubisoft to hook us up or buy a second copy, and
I think they'll
hook you up with it.
Yeah. Does RAM speed actually mean anything after 3666 on Ryzen?
Well, good luck running it above there.
Probably. There's a few problems there. First of all, compatibility, motherboards, and the Ryzen integrated memory controller, getting it to work at that speed can be difficult. It can certainly be done. People have done it. If you could run above that, then it would make a massive difference. Like DDR4, it's not actually 3666 megahertz either, but I'm not going to correct you on that. It's just DDR4 3666. The megahertz is actually half that because it's double data rate memory. But anyway, that's
it's MTs per second. Mega transfers.
But
But no one uses that term anyway.
Yeah, don't mean to pick apart the question or anything like that. But it would definitely help. Getting it to work. I mean, I've got some Ryzen 7 CPUs that won't work over 3200.
And my Ryzen 7 one, I tried using it with a high-speed memory, and
So the
even getting 2933 is very difficult.
And that's the problem and the frustration for Ryzen owners is that they don't know if the motherboard will do it for a start. And you do need at least a 4-layer motherboard, and it needs to be, routed very efficiently to work at over 2933, 2966. That's it, isn't it? Was it 2933?
It's 2933.
2933, I thought that, yeah. So you need a good motherboard, and then the integrated memory controller in the Ryzen CPU needs to be able to do it. And because I have a motherboard and memory modules that I know can go up to like 3466 and higher and work successfully, I've got about 20 Ryzen CPUs, and only like 3 of them can do it. So I think one's an 1800X, a 1700X, and maybe a 1600X. But anyway, the point is I've got a lot of Ryzen CPUs, and most can't go over 3200 without a lot of effort. I thought the stream dropped then for some reason.
I've had we're 0 drop frames since we switched to.
Oh, 4G. It's probably my internet that's dropping.
Yeah.
iPrimus is still dropping, so I've lost the chat for a minute. But anyway, yeah. When it comes to Ryzen memory speed, though, again, that's sort of what Tim talked about in his Ryzen experience, 12 months experience video. If you've got a GTX 1070 and you're playing at 1440p or whatever, DDR4 2400 is going to give you the same results as 3200. Because you're not limited by the CPU or your memory bandwidth. You're limited by your GPU.
I wonder if this will be one of the things that will be sort of like memory compatibility will be a bit better on X470 as opposed to X370.
Well,
because I find it hard to believe there'll be actual performance differences.
No.
Because what is they going to...
No,
how could the chipset make any difference?
That's definitely one thing they can improve upon is the quality of the motherboards. Most of AMD's partners, when I say partners like Gigabyte, MSI, Asus and all that, they do cheap out on AMD boards. They're just not as good as the Intel ones because they don't make as much margin. So as Ryzen gains in popularity and they guaranteed more sales, they'll spend more money on the quality of the boards. And then one of the companies basically admitted this to me, and they said, we have one good board and it will run at high speed memory because we've put the extra layers in, we've done it properly, and we charge a premium for that board. The rest of our boards that we don't expect to sell as well as the Intel ones, we haven't done quite as well. And so that's why you'll struggle getting above the advertised memory speeds. So, cool, my internet's back.
No, yours is unable to connect. Mine's also that too, which I don't know why, but...
So is the chat still working?
Not on my end. Maybe if I refresh this, considering it doesn't actually matter. So.
I'll try that. So that answers the memory question. If I can get the chat working again... Oh, here we go. Yep, okay, they've been chatting away, these guys, and we haven't been able to read them. Okay, memory speed. Can a game really be optimized enough for Ryzen to perform significantly better? No, game engines can definitely be optimized better to use Ryzen instructions and cater to SMT support and things like that. I'm not saying it'll happen because of the same thing we see with NVIDIA on the GPU front. Intel's definitely doing stuff with game developers to ensure that their CPUs work better. But you can definitely make games better for Ryzen for sure.
Yeah, I remember listening to some podcasts recently where game developers were talking about their engine and how it sort of like utilizes CPU resources.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them, like they think that if they had redesigned the engine, that they could pull out a lot of stuff from the main processing thread into sort of peripheral threads. Whereas in a lot of current game engines, there's like a primary thread that like limits the performance quite significantly, and they do put some things in other threads to sort of
that's what we see with the
try and make it multi-threaded.
That's what we see with the NVIDIA drivers. Even in DirectX 12, it's amplified the problem, and that's why Ryzen's terrible. And I'm shocked more. Well, has anyone else bothered testing? I know Vega 64 kind of sucks, but Vega 64 Liquid is respectable. It's like GTX 1080 level performance. And Ryzen definitely does better with Radeon GPUs because of the way the drivers work. They don't do that they're not single thread dependent.
I'm not sure if how the game engine threads is related to how the driver threads. I think that's
two different. That's two different things. I'm just sort of saying they do relate, but they're not the same thing.
Yeah, obviously if a driver can use better utilize CPU resources to get what needs to get done.
Yeah, not just and
not. I don't know. I have no idea really how drivers work, but if they're streamlining things into a single thread, so like maybe Nvidia does this, then you're going to get less performance on.
Nvidia does, yes, they do that. And it's worse with DirectX 12 because they somewhat fake their DirectX 12 support.